Wow. I was just introduced by Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, y'all. I don't know if it gets any better than that for me today, but good morning.
Good morning.
I'm City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, and I'm so proud and honored to have been elected to become the first Black Speaker of the New York City Council. You know, as the daughter of parents from South Carolina, growing up during the Civil Rights Movement, I felt the impact of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s passionate and inspiring words that created a fervor for justice. His traumatic assassination caused our families to cry out in sorrow, but his spirit could never be silenced. His message and mission remain a focus for us to carry forward today, not only when we honor him on this day, but every single day. The fight against discrimination, exploitation, and underinvestment that promote poverty and injustice continues. I carry with me Dr. King's mission to fight for justice and equality in service of the marginalized. That is why I followed my calling to public service, working on behalf of my community to ensure our interests were equally represented and prioritized. And first, what we all have to do. First, I rolled my sleeves up to work on my local community board. That was my start. I wanted to strengthen our community by making sure investments and decisions met our needs to secure a better now and a better future. On the City Council, I sought to make even bigger that impact for my community by working with others across the city. You see, our challenges and well-being are intertwined. From our seniors who were in the struggle with Dr. King, who some of you sit and watch this presentation today, to the youngest children and our students, as well as working adults. So many neighborhoods across this city and country face some of the same struggles of underinvestment and disparities in access to opportunity and resources. We've no doubt made progress. And let's be clear, leadership and representation are critical to facilitating change.
Woo! Woo!
A Black woman is City Council Speaker for the first time. It's not only an honor for me, but it's also an obligation for us to move forward. And to be honest with you, it's taken far too long for representation to fully reflect in our city of New York. I'm exceptionally proud that our new City Council is the most diverse in history. We have a majority of women members for the very first time. Who together with members of color are a super majority. We have a record number of Asian American members. Our first South Asian and Korean descent, and so many more firsts. This is a new class of representatives that truly reflect our great diversity of the great New York. We come from different backgrounds and have different experiences, which will inform us of the varying needs of our individual communities. And as we're clear, the importance of breaking historic barriers is to ensure that we confront deeply entrenched injustices that were Dr. King's focus. As a native of Southeast Queens, I can tell you that the people of my district, my neighbors, like too many other parts of our city, have always received the short end of the stick. This is an issue of equity, and more specific, an issue of inequity. that continues to persist for communities across the city, and especially for communities of color. It's no coincidence that throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Black and brown communities have been the hardest hit. Our neighborhoods had some of the highest rates of COVID infections in the city, and in many cases were left unequipped by a lack of interest in our health and our safety. Testing, treatment, and vaccine infrastructure that we so badly needed were not the priority they should have been, only adding to the impact and an overall lack of healthcare resources that already existed. We felt it, we feel it. Neighborhoods, like the one that I and many of my colleagues represent, have been long neglected and underserved when it comes to access to quality health care, fresh and healthy foods, and opportunities to thrive. This left so many of our residents disproportionately vulnerable to the virus and increased risk of becoming the most ill and losing our lives after catching COVID. Overall, our city has lost more than 36,000 fellow New Yorkers due to COVID. And like so many across our city, I too felt that pain very deeply with loss of my own family that hit very close for me. Also lost was any illusion about the disparities and deep inequalities that already existed and were only exacerbated by this pandemic. Whether it's healthcare, education, and the digital divide, public safety, transportation, or housing, we must address all of these inequities while also overcoming this virus that has transformed our way of life. That's our charge. And I will fight every day to ensure that underserved communities in this city are not forgotten, but have the equity, the justice, and the resources that we deserve.
Woo!
And although he delivered them more than half a century ago, Dr. King's words still reverberate and ring true today. His struggle, our struggle, for voting rights, civil rights, racial and economic justice are present at this very moment in time. Today and every day, we must renew our commitment to this struggle to ensure that we confront institutional and structural racism and systemic inequality. That is how we honor Dr. King's legacy. I know that we will march together in this fight and that we will prevail. We're a strong people because, as Dr. King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Woo!
Here today, continue to reflect on Dr. King's life and pay tribute to his legacy. I am more confident than ever that we will achieve what our ancestors have long sought. And we as a people will do it together. Yes, as Dr. King said, we as a people will get to the promised land, because I tell you this, as Dr. King stood and he professed